Hi, it's John from Android Addicts, and today I'm testing the Galaxy S21 Exynos version versus the Snapdragon 888 version for photos and video. So this is a 4K 30fps video which is using the main 12 megapixel sensor. There's no point going up to 8K or 60fps because the video on YouTube is only going to be 4K 30 anyway. So this is really just to get an idea as to how well these perform with their optical image stabilization, and also if there are any sound differences at all between the two phones. There shouldn't really be, but you never know. So I'm just going to walk around here for a bit. It's freezing cold today, so my hands are already frozen, but hopefully they won't be shaking too much for this video. Both of these phones do have the latest February update on them, so I know there's been some camera improvements in this update. Certainly the camera stabilization was a major issue on the January update. Certainly when you zoomed in 10x, the stabilization went out the window basically. So it's not the sunniest of days, but there's a bit of sun poking out through there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to switch to the ultra-wide camera now, and we'll just give that a bit of a run, see how it looks, and then we'll do some zooming tests and see how the stabilization is like now with this February update. It's very windy today, so this is a good test for the top dual ambient mics. You can even see there's a bit of snow left here on the floor. So what I'm going to do, just going to head back over here and we're going to do some zoom tests. So I'll talk through as I select each of the zooms. We'll just see how far we can get and how they look. So first we'll go back to the 1x, so that's using the main sensor. Then we're going to start zooming in. Okay, so this is 2x on both. I'll just pan around a bit, left and right. Then we're going to head over to 4x. And then we're going to jump up to 10x. So previously, as I said in the January update, this was jumping around all over the place, so it's nice to see that it's a bit more stable now. Initially, looking at the screens, the Exynos seems to be jumping around a tiny bit more than the Snapdragon, but there are still jumps in the Snapdragon, as you can see. Then we'll head up to 12x zoom. Just give those a bit of a comparison there. Now I'm going to head down to the 3x zoom on both. If I can. Okay, we're now at 3x zoom on both phones. So this is more than usable, I'd say, quality wise. Just going to walk around a bit more. Shame the sun's gone really, but can't have it all. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the front-facing camera now, and we'll just do some front-facing video tests as well. Okay, so this is the 10 megapixel front-facing camera on both phones. As you can see, quality is pretty good. To my eye, the Snapdragon actually looks a bit darker, certainly my face does, compared to the Exynos. But both of them look really good quality. But yeah, I do apologise for this freezing cold here. It's not very pleasant. Again, we've got quite a lot of wind at the moment, which is bitterly cold, so hopefully the noise cancellation is working well on both again. I really hope it is, because I'm not going to record this again, it's way too cold. But there we are. Okay, so here we have the standard slow-mo. Just thought I'd take a quick video to see how well this works. Samsung have been doing slow-mo really well for quite a while now, so as you can see, it looks really nice. Okay, next up, I wanted to just test out the focusing of the cameras. All I was doing here was just, as you can see, putting my hands in front of the camera lens and just seeing how quickly it would focus on my hands. Couldn't really see any difference between the two. So next up, I put 3 objects down in front of the camera and just rotated the focus between each object just to see how well they could focus. I'd say the focusing on this part here on the Xbox controller looks a bit better on the Snapdragon. It looks a bit sharper, looks a bit more detailed. So the selfies on these phones are really good. You've probably heard how good the edge detection is, and it is indeed extremely good. As you can see if we just cut my head off here. So the detection on the Qualcomm, even though there's a tree behind with lots of detail, still manages to cut out pretty well. Okay, so now we're going to move on to just standard photos using the main sensor. Now, Auto HDR was turned on both of these phones, as I put at the start of the video. Not a huge amount of difference between them. Perhaps the Exynos sometimes gets the HDR a bit nicer looking. What is quite interesting though is the amount of detail between the two. So if we have a look at these two leaves, for example, if we just zoom in the sort of bottom right here, we can see that the Exynos does have a bit more detail on the leafy, the darker patches there. Again, if we look on this photo here, we can see the water on the Exynos looks better than the Snapdragon. Again, let's just zoom in here. We can see the leaf has a lot more detail on the Exynos version. Slight differences in the sky in this one. Now I'm going to check out the details a bit more in some of these photos. So I actually noticed this whilst I was actually taking the photos. So if we have a look on the ground on this one, for example, if we zoom in here, you can see that the Snapdragon is a lot softer than the Exynos. If we look at this shot of the keyboard, you can see that the Exynos has a bit of a darker tint to it, so you can see the black labelling is a bit darker than the Snapdragon. So here are some photos from earlier. We can see that when you take a photo, the Exynos is sharper. That was a touch to focus on the Xbox controller. Okay, we're going to move on to the night photos now. So they both perform really well during the night. But again, there are some subtle differences here between the Exynos and the Snapdragon. So if we zoom into this photo here, we can see there's a lot more detail on the Exynos compared to the Snapdragon. Now these were put into a tripod while taking the photos. Again, we can zoom into this one here, And we can see the sort of headpiece around this statue is a lot more detailed than the Snapdragon version on the Exynos. And again, this photo here, if we zoom into the sign of this shop, we can see it's a bit darker, it's a bit more defined, a bit sharper. So there's a shot here, if you look at the light in the right hand side, you can see it's a bit more blown out on the Snapdragon. This shop looks pretty good on both, not a huge amount of difference between the two. So this last shot is an interesting one. It all looks okay until you zoom in a bit, and if you have a look at the path at the bottom, you can see again the Exynos is really a lot sharper than the Snapdragon. Right, next up is the 4K 30 frames per second nighttime video. I won't bother with the sound on this as I wasn't saying anything, so I'm just going to put the music on in the background and you can compare the two side by side. Overall, the stabilisation during the night is still really good. I'm quite impressed. So I hope you found this video useful. I personally think the Exynos 2100 is winning at the moment compared to the Snapdragon. You can certainly see when you zoom into photos it's a lot sharper and there's a lot more detail there. Now I'm sure that the Snapdragon camera can get an update and perform as well, if not better, in the future, but these are both, like I said, running the February update of 2021, and this is currently how they both perform. So let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree that the Exynos won this one, or have you spotted something on the Snapdragon that I didn't during this video? Be sure to hit the subscribe button as I'll be doing some more comparison videos between the 2100 and the 888. If you want to become a member of the channel, click on the join button, that really helps out. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.